Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Jasper, we've just received a mission related to the Presgrave family, Antoine said over the phone. Uncle, what happened to the Presgraves? Jasper's tension heightened immediately. The Presgraves have enraged the mafia in Dansbury. They assembled a team of mercenaries to carry out an assassination against all members of the Presgrave family. I've assigned Sirius to assist you. You must protect the Presgrave family by coordinating with their security forces. As a final note, Antoine emphasized, this mission involves national interests. There can be no errors. Mr. Oswald will also keep a close eye on it. Jasper clenched his fist without knowing it. Uncle, please send me all the information you have on the mafia. Okay. Take good care of yourself. Remember to prioritize your own safety while ensuring the Presgrave family's safety, Antoine cautioned. In past missions, Jasper never allowed personal emotions to cloud his judgment, but the Presgrave family was involved in this mission. This time, he would undoubtedly devote himself to it with more dedication than ever before. Antoine was concerned that Jasper would lose sight of the bigger picture. I understand. Jasper nodded. An undercurrent of tension ran through his veins beneath his composed exterior. He would never ever allow any harm to befall any member of the Presgrave family. Soon, the information about the mafia was sent to Jasper. He looked at the photos and found those faces familiar. These mafia criminals had been specifically targeting global magnates. Relentlessly, they seized resources for profit and exploited price differentials during the process. As long as someone could afford the price, they would do whatever it took to eliminate the target on behalf of their employer. There was also information about the targets, which were intercepted by the special forces when it was sent by the mafia. There were several photos of Willow among them that the mafia obtained from various sources, Willow appearing at social events or in school having the appearance of a wealthy young lady. In the afternoon, Jasper's partner, Sirius, arrived. A man in his mid-30s, Sirius possessed exceptional skills and experience in such operations. His identity was also highly secretive. He was a member of a special operations unit. The only information known about him was his codename, Sirius, and his daily tasks were classified at the highest level of secrecy. The two of them discussed the details of their mission face-to-face in the safe house. Our mission this time is to launch an assassination and elimination plan against the mafia before they get close to the Presgrave family. They are currently infiltrating through various covert means. We can only wait to avoid tipping them off, Sirius explained. Jasper nodded. His brow furrowed deeply, forming 3 lines on his forehead. I can tell you're quite nervous. Sirius quipped. Jasper didn't deny it. He stared at the 12 people in the photos, each of their faces engraved in his mind. This was a mission that allowed no room for failure, and he couldn't afford a single mistake. Not even the slightest error would be tolerable. Be prepared. We'll visit the Presgraves tomorrow. Just relax and treat it like any other mission you've executed. Sirius comforted him by reaching out and patting his shoulder. Before Sirius came here, Antoine had actually filled him in on Jasper's situation. In the early evening, Willow received an invitation from Jasper, a celebratory dinner in her honor. When she saw the address sent to her, she couldn't help but pause in surprise. Wait. Isn't this his home address? She was more than happy to accept the dinner invitation. Willow set off in her car at about 5:00 p.m. She was escorted by 6 bodyguards all the way to Jasper's house. As they arrived, the gates of a mysterious villa slowly opened and Willow got out of the car and walked through the gates. She removed her outerwear to reveal an elegant dress. Then, she carried her purse and gracefully stepped into the villa through the iron gate. Jasper was dressed in a casual outfit and waiting for her behind the gate. Is this your house? Willow inquired curiously. Jasper simply answered, yes, it is. Willow looked around. It was an old-fashioned villa with a sense of timeless elegance. She felt sorry for Jasper as she imagined him living here alone and reminiscing about his departed loved ones, so she reached out and hugged him. As a result, he was taken aback for a moment. I prefer your house over the restaurant, Willow said with a smile. Jasper was mesmerized by her smile and relaxed a little. As soon as she let go of him, he held her hands as they entered the hall together. Willow was surprised, but she secretly enjoyed it. Although they had a little argument for the past 2 days, she wasn't actually really angry at him. He had a special identity and the country had spent a large amount of fortune to nurture him. He also had a strong sense of purpose and responsibility. It would be shocking if he were to abandon that just to be with her. Apart from his good looks and stature, his sense of justice and responsibility were the most attractive aspects to her. As they walked into the hall, Willow saw the table filled with some fruits and a bottle of champagne, along with a bouquet of roses and some candles. For a man who did not know how to be romantic, he was trying hard to create a romantic atmosphere. Willow approached the roses and took a sniff as she smiled. The decorations are pretty. Jasper glanced at his watch, saying, please take a seat while I prepare our dinner. Willow put down her bag and walked toward him, saying, let's prepare it together. Jasper did not want her to tire herself, so he looked back and said, just get some rest on the couch or take a walk in the garden. Leave the dinner preparations to me. Can I look around your villa? Willow asked. Sure, but be careful. Willow nodded and left to explore the villa. She went to the second floor and realized that most of the sections were still covered in cloth. There was no doubt that Jasper had only cleared out a single room for himself to stay. She came to his room. The room was neat and clean, it was also very minimalistic. He lived an ordinary life, despite his large fortune. How could she not fall in love with a man like him? Willow lingered in the room and noticed a photo album that Jasper had flipped through. She opened it and started to tear up. It was filled with Jasper's photos from when he was a baby up till when he was 8, along with some photos of his parents. There were many photos, but they ended on his 8th birthday. His parents passed away shortly after that and he was forced to leave home when he got adopted by his uncle. Willow took her phone and snapped a picture of a young Jasper. He was 3 years old that year. She placed the photo album back in its place and noticed that she had tears in her eyes. She dried her tears and composed herself before leaving the room. After she went down, she saw Jasper busy preparing dinner in the kitchen. His slender body was clearly outlined by the apron worn over his black shirt and black slacks. Willow walked over involuntarily, then wrapped her arms around his waist and rubbed her face against his back. Jasper glanced at her with affection in his eyes. He had prepared a lavish dinner tonight, which consisted of all his specialty dishes. Willow saw him preparing a lobster and she happily exclaimed, "Wow! We're having a huge cheesy lobster tonight." "Be patient and wait outside, there's too much smoke and oil in here," Jasper said caringly. Willow knew that she could not help with dinner and instead might make a mess if she helped. She nodded and said, "All right, I'll wait for your dinner then." She went to the couch and found a spot where she could look at him, and she snapped a photo of the busy man in the kitchen. The man in the image had a stunning back and he was on par with a movie star. Willow received a few messages from work. She was glad that Jet was arrested for committing thefts of cultural relics. As the sky turned dark, the chandelier in the hall lit up as a lavish dinner was prepared by the man. She felt very touched when she came over to the dining table and saw the gourmet dishes that he had prepared on his own. Jasper popped open a bottle of champagne and poured half a glass each for himself and for Willow. It felt like they were on a date under the candlelight. Willow held her glass and looked at Jasper with her mesmerizing eyes. She toasted, "Here's to you, Mr. Wyatt." Jasper was stunned for a moment and gave her a toast. Willow sighed and said, "I've thought about it, let's be friends." "From now on, can we be friends?" Jasper nodded. "Sure." She was a little disappointed that he agreed to that, but she was optimistic about it. At the very least, she would hear from him. She would cherish the time she was able to spend with him. Willow was hungry and started to enjoy the cheesy lobster on her plate. She was careless and the corner of her lips got stained with some sauce. The man stared at her profoundly, but Willow was not aware of this. He hesitated for about 3 seconds before extending his arms and wiping off the sauce on her lips with his slender fingers. Willow was dazed, and only then did she realize that she had stains on the corner of her mouth. She was embarrassed and used a napkin to wipe it off. Jasper brought her plate toward him and sliced her lobster into smaller pieces. Willow was delighted. She leaned toward him as she waited for him to feed her. He knew her intentions and fed her, causing Willow to be overjoyed as she chewed. Jasper felt like he was on cloud 9 too. Tonight, he left behind his work and his identity as he wanted to celebrate with Willow without any distractions. "Here's to wishing that you make it onto the list of top 10 outstanding figures." Jasper toasted her. "Thank you." They clinked their glasses, feeling blissful. Just then, their eyes met. The man's eyes were as dark as the midnight sky, mysterious and deep while being soft and seductive. Willow had butterflies in her stomach again. This man's gentleness was her weakness. Her eyes flickered as she glanced toward the night sky, asking, "Is there any alcohol?" The champagne was not able to drown her sorrows. "You shouldn't be drinking." "I like to drink a little when I'm happy," Willow said as she looked at the man and pleaded, "Just a glass." Jasper gave in to her pleas. He walked toward the alcohol cabinet and brought over a bottle of whiskey, saying, "I only have this here." "That'll do." Willow nodded. He opened the bottle and poured her a small glass. She sniffed it and did not fancy it, but she wanted to try it. If she forced herself to drink a little, she would be able to get drunk. "To you." Willow toasted Jasper again. He took a sip of the whiskey and filled her plate with food. "Fill your stomach before drinking." Willow nodded and enjoyed his service as she savored the food and drink. She was focused on getting drunk. When the glass was almost empty, Willow stood up to pour herself more, but she was stopped by Jasper. "Don't drink too much as you'll get drunk." Willow shook her head and smiled. "I'm not worried as you're here." Jasper looked at Willow helplessly. She started to feel a little tipsy as she would not stop staring at him. Willow kept staring at him while eating the food he took for her as if he was some sort of eye candy. She drank a little more and wanted to get another refill. Jasper got up and took the bottle of whiskey away to the alcohol cabinet. "Don't be so stingy," Willow complained and followed him. She trailed behind him, but he turned in frustration and stopped her. "That's enough. Finish up your dinner and I'll send you home." "I'm already full." "I just want a little more to drink," Willow said stubbornly. All of a sudden, the lights flickered and went out completely due to the old wiring. The hall fell into complete darkness, except for the dining area where 2 candles were burning brightly on the table. Suddenly, the atmosphere transformed into a hazy ambiguity, a misty veil descending upon them. Willow's gaze met Jasper's, and the man instinctively drew her into his embrace, a protective gesture against her potential fear. Then, her grip tightened around his waist, a true reflection of her genuine fright. In that instant, their faces hovered mere inches apart as the rhythm of their breaths was a tangible bridge between them. Her eyes and brows glistened as if touched by the kiss of rain, emanating a liquid luminescence that momentarily stole his breath away. Despite the dimness of the room, his eyes burned with undeniable intensity. At this moment, her breaths became shallow as she wrapped her arms around his neck and lifted her face slightly as a silent invitation for him to kiss her. Meanwhile, Jasper struggled to restrain the tempest of emotions coursing through him. Amidst the dim light, his tall stature enveloped Willow in the corner of the room, akin to a wolf asserting its claim over territory, resolute in not letting her leave and preventing others from prying. A nervous gulp traced down her throat, ensnared by the heady symphony of pheromones that enveloped them both, drawing her inexorably closer to the man's inviting neck. On the other hand, his breath hitched, his resolve finally yielding as he gently cupped her chin, guiding her with tenderness as his slender lips met her flushed ones. After having suppressed their desires for too long, this kiss erupted with fervor as soon as it began. However, Willow was slightly taken aback as an undercurrent of sweetness and surprise swept through her, overwhelming any uncertainty. Every fiber of her being was tightly held in the man's embrace as his passionate kiss consumed her. In this corner, amidst the dimness, they carved out a small world, a sweet sanctuary untouched by others. Time appeared to lose its hold as their lips intertwined until an inquisitive stray cat leaped onto the windowsill outside, breaking the enchantment and capturing the attention of Jasper, who held the blushing young woman in a fervent embrace. As she was pressed against his sturdy chest, her face turned a shade of pink as her breaths quickened. She spoke softly, "What's the matter?" "Meow." The little cat outside seemed equally startled, meowing frantically. Then, he sighed and said, "Just a little cat." Willow's lips curved into a smile, but their haven was abruptly illuminated again, exposing their intimate moment. Flushed with embarrassment, she buried her face into Jasper's embrace, feeling self-conscious after the intensity of their kiss. However, his fingers caressed the back of her head as his chin lightly grazed her hair. A silent sigh escaped him, a mixture of contentment and shared vulnerability. At that moment, Willow's phone rang. Jasper gently released his grip on her on the couch, saying, "You should take that call." With a quizzical intrigue, she contemplated who might have called her at this hour. Retrieving the phone, she was taken aback to find her father on the other end. "Hello, Dad." Her words flowed from her with a poised composure. "Willow, where are you?" Her father's voice held a hint of concern. "I'm at a friend's house." "Come home early." "Dad, is something wrong?" Willow immediately sensed that her father was keeping something from her. "I just received a notification that a group of mafia members has entered the country and has targeted the family," Elliot divulged. At this, her expression grew serious. "Okay, Dad, I'll come home early." After hanging up the phone, she turned to the man behind her. "My dad wants me to come home early." "All right, I'll take you home," Jasper said, guessing what her father had discussed with her. "When will we be able to meet again?" Willow asked with reluctance. "I believe we'll meet again soon," he reassured her. Then, he led her to the underground parking lot, where he drove out of a car and met with the external bodyguards. Together, they escorted her back home. The Presgrave family had encountered their fair share of trials and tribulations, narrowly escaping danger on each occasion. With the expansion of the family business, the stakes had risen proportionately. Willow's inner strength had also grown significantly. She courageously accepted everything that came her way, confident that her father and elder brother would ensure the safety of their family. "Willow, try not to go out too much during this period and stay with your family," Jasper advised her. Willow nodded. "I know. My dad said our family is facing some issues. I'll follow the family's arrangements." When they reached the entrance of the Presgrave residence, Jasper couldn't go in. So, Willow got out of the car and sat in a bodyguard's car. Before leaving, she rolled down the window with a hint of reluctance in her eyes. Only after he watched the bodyguard's car enter the Presgrave residence's courtyard did he turn his car around and leave. Back at home, the atmosphere was pleasant. Willow's father was playing with her nephew on the couch. In the blink of an eye, the little guy had turned 6 months old and was incredibly adorable. "Dad," she called out and walked over to carry her nephew. Of course, Elliot was well aware of who his daughter met tonight. He wasn't worried about her being with Jasper. This time, he had received the message too. Besides the Presgrave family's security team, the government had also sent 2 skilled agents to help resolve the crisis. The little guy liked his aunt very much and clung to her, not wanting to be put down. In the end, Willow took him back to her room to play. The next morning, when she woke up, it was already 9:30 a.m. because she had stayed up late last night. She pushed open the door and came out. At home, she was used to being casual, so she simply put on a loose, long t-shirt, letting her long hair fall comfortably. With a bare face, she went downstairs. Still somewhat drowsy, she held onto the ivory-white staircase, yawning as she hummed a familiar tune. At that moment, she felt a gaze from the direction of the couch in the living room. Only then did Willow realize that her father was meeting with guests in the living room. As she looked toward the guests, she froze. She was taken aback, unable to believe her eyes. The guest sitting across from her father was none other than the man who had promised to meet her soon last night, Jasper, along with his colleague, Sirius. Instantly, her face turned red with embarrassment, and without saying a word, she turned around and ran back upstairs. As Elliot watched his daughter, an affectionate smile tugged at his lips. She's used to being casual at home. Miss Presgrave is really cute. Sirius chuckled. Meanwhile, Jasper's lips also curled into a similar affectionate smile, but he didn't say anything. After returning to her room, Willow instantly snapped back to reality. She hurriedly ran into the bathroom, assessing herself once more. However, she still couldn't shake off the feeling of embarrassment. Suddenly, she remembered Jasper's words from last night, saying that they would meet soon. He didn't bother telling me in advance that he'd be coming here today. That's a bit infuriating. She immediately went to her closet to find an outfit, applied makeup, and dressed up before heading downstairs. Meanwhile, downstairs, Elliot and Jasper had wrapped up their conversation. At this moment, from the direction of the stairs, Willow descended in an elegant dress. As her gaze met Jasper's, she glared at him with a touch of annoyance. Yet, he maintained a serious expression, keeping his emotions hidden. He politely greeted her. "Good morning, Miss Presgrave." When Sirius turned his head and glanced at his colleague, he couldn't help but feel happy for him. Gaining the favor of Miss Presgrave is truly a fortunate event for him. Though irritated, Willow was still happy deep down. She greeted him back seriously. "Good morning, Mr. Wyatt. Would you both stay for lunch?" Elliot invited. "We'll have to take a rain check. We have other matters to attend to. Please advise your family not to go out unless necessary during this period, Mr. Presgrave," Sirius said. "Understood. Thank you both for protecting the Presgrave family." "You're too kind," Sirius replied humbly. "I'll see you off." Willow seized the opportunity to see them out. With a smile, Sirius picked up his phone. "I'll make a call first." With that, he walked out first. Jasper turned back and politely bid farewell. "We'll take our leave, Mr. Presgrave." "Willow, why don't you see Jasper off?" Elliot purposely changed his address. Hearing that, Willow felt a burst of joy. It seems Dad really likes Jasper. His address to Jasper has even become informal. As she escorted Jasper out, her nerves were taut. She looked at him with worry. "Please be careful. The people attacking our family this time aren't ordinary." Jasper turned around to look at Willow. "You also need to be good and not wander around." "I know. I won't cause you any trouble." She nodded. Never had she thought that she would need his help to deal with her family's matters. Since Sirius had already entered the car, Jasper needed to leave as well. He patted her shoulder. "Don't worry. With me here, I won't let anything happen to you or your family." However, she tightly held his hand in worry. You must not let anything happen to you too. His gaze was deep as he looked at her. He had never feared anything before, feeling that his life was born for his mission. But now, he started to feel fear. He was afraid that if something happened to him, he would never see her again. All right. I promise nothing will happen to me, he said. Yet she remained deeply concerned. If only they weren't in her home, she would have given him a hug, but since they were here, she refrained from getting too intimate with him. Until my family fully accepts him, I can't put any pressure on him. I'll leave now. Jasper turned and walked toward the car. After getting in, he rolled down the window, holding her gaze for a few seconds before departing. Following that, the security personnel at the Presgrave residence became more active. At the moment, Anastasia was attending a jewelry show abroad when chaos suddenly broke out at the venue. After Elliot finished a call with his wife at home, his face was filled with worry. He stepped quickly outside and saw his daughter still in the garden, so he hurried over. Willow, I need to leave the country for a while. Stay home and keep Jared and Ellen company. Did something happen to Mom? Willow was also deeply worried. Some trouble broke out at the venue of the show. The entire place is under strict control now. I need to go get her and bring her home. Be careful, Dad. Don't worry about me. I'll take care of Ellen and the others. She reassured her father. Immediately, Elliot set off to rescue his wife. Before leaving, he called Jasper. Hello, Mr. Presgrave? Jasper answered the call. Jasper, I'm going abroad now. I'll leave my daughter and son with you. Should I arrange for someone to escort you? No need. I'll entrust matters at home to you. Jasper, I hope you can stay at my house and take care of them. Elliot immediately hung up after saying that. Subsequently, Jasper dialed Willow's number and she promptly answered, Hello? I just received a call from your dad. He's going abroad. Is it just you and your sister-in-law at home now? Yes, my brother is at the company. It's just me, my sister-in-law, and my nephew at home. Can I stay at your house? He asked in a low voice. He had decided to provide close protection for them. Of course. Please come over. We need you. After he discussed it with Sirius, a plan was confirmed. Jasper would stay at the Presgrave residence as a bodyguard, while Sirius would act separately since operating individually was their most skilled method of attack. Soon, Jasper packed a bag and headed to the Presgrave residence. A maid led him into the living room, where Willow personally welcomed him. You're here. A hint of shyness appeared on her face, but her happiness was unmistakable. At that moment, her sister-in-law, Ellen, descended the stairs, carrying her son. She looked at the outstanding young man beside Willow, feeling genuinely pleased for her. He must be the young man Willow has talked to me about. He truly has a remarkable presence. After Willow's return, she chatted with Ellen about the cultural heritage adventure. They were both young people, so there was naturally nothing they couldn't discuss. While attending an awards ceremony, Ellen had briefly met him before, but she had been too hasty to get a clear view. Ellen, let me introduce you. This is the Mr. Wyatt I mentioned to you before, Willow said, then turned to Jasper. This is my sister-in-law, Ellen, and my adorable nephew. Jasper nodded at Ellen. Hello, Mrs. Presgrave. Hello. Thanks for coming, Ellen politely said. I've arranged a room for you. Let me show you upstairs, Willow offered. However, Jasper shook his head. I'll stay in the guard's residence. Willow felt a bit disappointed. Can't you stay in my house? He couldn't break the rules, and the guard's residence was located right beside the house, making it easier for him to protect Willow. With my status, I can't stay in your house. I'll see you later, he said, carrying his luggage as he left. As she watched his departing figure, she bit her red lips. I want close protection, not him staying in the guard's residence. Seeing that, Ellen came forward to comfort her. Don't rush things, Willow. His status may make it challenging for him to stay here. Willow nodded and could only say, right. At least we can still see each other every day. He's really good. I believe Mom and Dad will like him, Ellen said. Encouraged by this, Willow asked, do you really think so? Be patient. If it's meant to be, it will be. Ellen reassured her. She could see that Jasper also liked Willow. A love like this, when both sides are fond of each other, will surely have a happy ending. I'm speaking from experience. Willow had no choice but to stay patient. No matter what, I need to get through this family crisis first. He must be under a lot of pressure now too. With Jasper not far away, she felt much more at ease. She was currently studying the information about the cultural relics that were brought back, as this batch of artifacts held significant research value. During dinner time, Jared returned home. He first hugged his precious son and then embraced his wife. They were his motivation for working hard. Meanwhile, Willow, on the sidelines, was forced to watch this lovey-dovey moment. Willow, I heard Dad say that Mr. Wyatt is staying in our house. Make sure to behave and listen obediently, Jared said to his adorable younger sister. With a smile, Willow replied, when am I ever not obedient? Of course, he knew his younger sister liked Jasper. To be honest, he also admired him. If I can get him as my brother-in-law, I'll be at ease. Willow will have someone caring for her and protecting her. He needed to carefully assess the choice of his brother-in-law. After all, he had doted on his sister since she was young. If he couldn't entrust her to the right person, he wouldn't approve. Fortunately, his sister had good taste. She had set her sights on someone as strong as Jasper, which made things easier. Jared, Ellen, enjoy your dinner. I'm going out to clear my mind, Willow said. Hearing that, Jared chuckled. Are you sure you're not going to find Mr. Wyatt? Since you know, can you not expose me? She blushed and smiled shyly. Then she walked out into the yard of her house. From here, there was a corridor leading specifically to the accommodation for nannies, maids, and bodyguards. She used to rarely take this path, but tonight she seemed unusually delighted. Arriving at the guard's residence, she was met with a startled guard who quickly asked, Miss, is something wrong? No, everything's fine. I'm looking for someone, she replied before inquiring. Where does the new guard live? He's in the last room. The guard pointed her the way. After a nod, she headed straight to that last room. She knocked on the door, and footsteps sounded from behind it. When the door opened, it revealed a perfectly sculpted figure that was almost 95% exposed, from head to toe, unabashedly in full view before her eyes. Shocked, she widened her beautiful eyes, unsure where to look for a moment. Of course, her eyes did have their thoughts, and they directly landed on that undisclosed 5% of his body. Likewise, the man was momentarily stunned. He swiftly grabbed a towel from the nearby rack to cover his lower half. Why are you here? Jasper was a bit flustered. She really came without any warning. Jasper had thought it was Ricky, the head of the security team, because Ricky had mentioned earlier in the afternoon that he would come over in the evening to discuss the security of the house. As Willow looked at him, her large eyes blinked, and she bit her red lips. I came to look for you. After she said that, her face remained rosy, but she confidently stepped into his room. The accommodations for the Presgrave family's guards were very good. This was a suite-style apartment that was decorated luxuriously. The facilities here were also comprehensive. Being a guard for the Presgrave family not only came with a high salary, but also perfect benefits. At this moment, she sat down on the man's couch while he headed into his room. When he came back out, he was fully dressed. "Is it comfortable staying here? If you need anything, just let me know," she said. As the host of the house, she wanted to take care of him. "I don't need anything. You shouldn't wander around late at night. This is my house. Can't I come out to my own house? I'll be bored to death otherwise," she pouted and complained. At her words, he thought, that makes sense. She usually likes to run around, but now she has to be stuck at home. It's indeed a bit difficult for her. Rising to her feet, she surveyed his apartment suite, observing that he possessed only a small collection of personal attire, along with his computer and unfamiliar gadgets. "Let's make a deal, Jasper. If I get kidnapped, don't risk your life to save me," she suddenly said as she looked at him. Though she was just speaking hypothetically, his heart skipped a beat. He reached over and tapped her head, saying, "Don't talk nonsense. I won't let anything happen to you. I'm just saying if. No ifs. I was just giving an example. Don't give any." His tone was resolute in stopping her. She blinked but still argued, looking at him seriously. "In the scenario I said earlier, you have to follow my words. If something happened to him, I'd be tormented for a lifetime as well. So, if it came down to that, I don't want him to save me." With a deep gaze, he looked at her. "To me, as long as my target is still breathing, I will not give up on the rescue." "You." Willow looked at him, and tears suddenly welled up in her eyes. Seeing that, Jasper reached out and gently touched her cheek, wiping away the teardrop that was about to fall. "Don't be so pessimistic. Trust me. I'll keep you safe." She reached out and hugged his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. "Okay, both of us have to stay safe then." Her warm tears fell onto his skin, causing his heart to race. He reached over, rubbed the back of her head, and softly kissed her in her hair. When she raised her small face from his shoulder, her eyes glistened with tears, making her appear charming and alluring. Yet this caused the man's breathing to hitch. As she gazed at his sexy and tempting lips, her arms wrapped around his neck, and her rosy lips landed on his. However, she wasn't very experienced at kissing, and her tender and rosy lips didn't quite know what to do. It was more like a peck. At this moment, his gaze had become particularly dangerous and dark. He reached over and pulled her into his embrace. With his hand gently holding the back of her head, he leaned down and kissed her lush, cherry-red lips. The kiss was soft and sweet, like cotton candy, making him lose control. This usually calm and self-restrained man seemed to lose his senses in an instant, becoming utterly irrational. After some time, a kiss full of affection ended. With a flushed face, she melted in his arms like water, softly panting. Yet her eyes revealed a hint of unsatisfied longing. Even if Jasper wanted more, he had to restrain himself. "She's perfect. I can't and don't want to let her feel any discomfort." Willow sat in his embrace, cupping his face and giving him a few kisses as if her kisses were as natural as breathing. His breathing became more urgent, and his usually composed and confident face was now tinged with a rare blush. Originally, Willow was already seated on Jasper's lap. At this moment, she sensed something and blushed, burying her face in his chest. "I think I went overboard with the teasing. He's practically on the verge of exploding now. It's getting late." "I'll escort you back," Jasper said hoarsely. After some consideration, she replied, "I'll go back, but I'm fine on my own. If I stay any longer, I might damage his reputation." "I'll escort you," he insisted. Yet she still shook her head. "Really, you don't have to. It's my own home. Can't I find my way around? Although my house is huge, it's the place where I've grown up since childhood." Suddenly, he said to her, "Do you have your phone?" He then took out a necklace from his bag and handed it to her. "Wear this. No matter what happens, don't take it off." She blinked as she looked at the necklace. It didn't seem like something a girl would wear. It was a black cord with an obsidian pendant. While she was still examining it, he placed it around her neck and instructed, "No matter what happens, don't take it off. Understand?" Ads by PubFuture. Immediately, she realized that there was something special about the obsidian. It must contain a tracking device that allows him to locate me anywhere. "Okay, I promise not to take it off." She nodded earnestly. As Jasper held her face in his hands, he gently kissed her forehead. "Off you go." Originally, he intended to attach the device to her phone, but then he thought that sometimes she might forget her phone somewhere. It would be more effective if she wore this necklace. As Willow was about to leave, she looked back at the man and then turned around, hugging his waist tightly. It was as if his body had a magnetic pull, constantly enticing her to hold on to him. Seeing that she was reluctant to leave again, he felt an impulse not to let her go. "She's really torturing me." She planted another kiss on his thin lips and said, "Good night." Only after that did she feel content to leave. He saw her off until she disappeared into the corridor. Back in her room, Willow felt safe and fell asleep soundly, despite the potential dangers outside. With Jasper around, she had nothing to fear. Outside the city, 8 mercenaries arrived at the designated meeting point one after another. Their objective was clear this time, which was to assassinate members of the Presgrave family. Every member of the Presgrave family had become their target. However, they quickly received news that the Presgrave family's patriarch had already gone abroad. The only ones remaining in the country were his children. Yet they had to complete their mission quickly, which was to create a family crisis that would cause the Presgrave group's stock prices to collapse. As long as anything happened to any member of the Presgrave family, it could potentially lead to stock market turmoil. Each of these individuals held dozens of lives in their hands. They were all ruthless characters who had fought their way back from war-torn countries. This time, they had received a substantial amount of money from their employer, which allowed them to acquire a comprehensive range of equipment for the operation. As they prepared to locate the Presgrave residents and invade their security system, they were startled to find that no matter what method they used, they couldn't break through. "What's going on? This is the most advanced decryption code. How can we not crack it? It seems like the Presgrave family has skilled hackers as well." At once, these mercenaries exchanged glances. This obviously increased the difficulty of their mission. They had thought killing a wealthy family would be an easy task that they could finish in a few days. Now they couldn't even breach their surveillance system. They had underestimated the Presgrave family's defensive capabilities. At this moment, in Jasper's room, he was in communication with Sirius. Jasper had installed a tracking Trojan in the defense code. Now the Trojan had traced the attacking IP address. "I've found their location," he said. "Don't take action yet, Jasper. We must coordinate. They have a large number of people, and it's very risky for you to go alone." "I know. I'll track their location so that we can catch them all in one go," Jasper replied. He had never been so eager to eliminate a target before. In the meantime, the mercenaries inside an abandoned house were trying various methods to locate the members of the Presgrave family. The current Presgrave residence was as fortified as a fortress, impenetrable. On Jasper's computer, he quickly captured photos of several vehicles and used satellite images to track the movements of the mercenaries. Soon, he pinpointed their gathering location. "Sirius, I want to take action before they spread out," he said firmly. Sirius was also looking at the photos and videos he had sent, contemplating their next move. In the end, he agreed with Jasper's plan. It was indeed the best opportunity to strike while they were still gathered and before they could spread out. "Get ready to move at 3. But be prepared. This will be a tough fight," he reminded Jasper. There were 8 of them, while Jasper and Sirius were just 2. Although the Presgrave family's bodyguards could be deployed, sending more people might alert the mercenaries. Moreover, both of them were used to operating solo, so they decided to go together this time. At 3:00 a.m., Jasper set out from the Presgrave residence. When he rolled down the car window and looked in the direction of the Presgrave villa, he made a firm promise to himself that he would ensure her safety. With that, he left without a trace, just as he always did, like a lone wolf. By 4:30 a.m., even the stars had vanished from the sky, leaving the darkest time of night. Jasper and Sirius chose to approach from a nearby waterway. Since the water could mask their sound, the route through the river was excellent for concealing their presence. They stealthily entered the abandoned reservoir where the mercenaries were resting. There was no one around, making it convenient for the mercenaries to operate. However, they had set up surveillance equipment in a 1-mile radius, so any movement could potentially alert them. Yet Jasper and Sirius carried devices that could shield signals, allowing them to remain perfectly hidden. At this moment, lights and the sounds of male voices came from the house. It seemed they hadn't gone to sleep yet and were celebrating something. However, just then, Jasper and Sirius heard the cries of several girls. In an instant, they exchanged glances. It appeared that these mercenaries had kidnapped some girls and were having their way with them inside. They despised these scoundrels and were determined to make them pay a heavy price later on. Inside the house were indeed 3 girls who had been driving on a nearby road. They had been intercepted midway and brought here to amuse these men. The girls had been brought here recently and were now pale and trembling all over. They looked at these foreign faces, sensing the strong aura of death and hostility. Naturally, they knew these men were not good people, they were killers. However, the presence of the girls made the mercenaries lower their guard. Little did they know that the Presgrave family had sent international special agents. They believed the Presgrave family's defense was limited to their security team. So, they decided to have some fun with these attractive girls first. They started discussing indecent topics, and 2 of them had even begun to touch the girls. In the room, the atmosphere was charged, fueling excitement among the mercenaries. However, unbeknownst to them, an unexpected threat was lurking just outside the window. Jasper and Sirius each took up a position at a window, using hand gestures to coordinate their actions. Moments before this, Jasper had planted explosives in the vehicles outside. Even if these men tried to escape, they wouldn't have a chance. Following Sirius' command, Jasper shot 2 of the mercenaries inside in the head, killing them instantly. The rest immediately sought cover and pulled out their guns, firing at the windows. Inside the room, the girls' screams could be heard, but at that moment, the mercenaries had lost interest in their revelry. Their sole focus was on eliminating the enemies outside. In fact, Sirius and Jasper's goal was to scare them out and force them into their vehicles. Jasper found a concealed spot and aimed his sniper rifle at an enemy. With precise aim, he took down one of the enemies with a headshot. Meanwhile, his partner quickly unleashed a barrage of gunfire into the darkness.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.